Confessions 36. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Lovely J Podcast. I'm Coco. Let's get it started. So this is number 36, and his name is Vaughn. Now, of course, y'all know this isn't his real name, but this is the name I'll give him, as close to his name as I can get. Vaughn was from Rockingham, North Carolina. He was like this big time dealer guy. Anything you wanted he could get, and when I say dealer, I'm talking about like business wise. Like cars and trucks, houses, anything you had need of, this guy could hook you up with. I mean, just like that. So Vaughn and I met the same time that number 35 and I met. And how I remember this is because once I start talking about one guy, it comes into clusters, because whoever you were with in that era, in that time, that's who I remember. If I say Rail, then I'm going to remember Vaughn. And then when I remember Vaughn, I'm going to remember Willie. And then it just keeps trickling down like that until I run out of who's who. And Vaughn was this dark-skinned guy. He was around, I would say, probably like 5'11". And he got the thing, the live link sound. It came on, and he said, Vaughn. I said, dang, this sounds like he about to be a tough dude. I could tell by the way he said his voice that he was about to be on some serious note. And I could tell that he was kind of thickums. And I was like, okay, I'm finna see what he about. And so I accepted his request, and we started talking from there. And after we got to know each other through the not the quest line, but the live link line, then we started talking, gave out our numbers and started talking. Now, the first thing I did with him was realize one thing, is that he was easy to give up information. He loved giving out his information because it made him feel like a big man, and I was there for it all. I was listening. I was writing it down when he would start talking about how much money he had and the businesses that he had. And I listened to him talk about his parents too. Vaughn had a problem though. Vaughn was very insecure about his body because Vaughn had this big stomach that overlapped, and it wasn't really big to me, but I guess to him it seemed big. He had this belly that kind of overlapped, and he had dreads all down his back. I mean, these like heavy dreads. And Vaughn was a very romantic guy. Anything he did over the top, and that might have been his downfall, because I was not used to over the top treatment. I was not used to anybody giving me anything, so therefore I didn't know how to accept anything that he had given me. I know most women want the money and want the material things, and here I was, all I wanted to do was add him to my record. I didn't necessarily want to hurt him in any kind of way, but I wanted to have him added to my record for my ego. I wanted to feel like, yes, I'm finally in this area now. And it was a reason why I got in that area, because see, my ex had ties to that area. And all I really wanted with Vaughn was for him to go back and tell somebody that he had got a chance to have a good time with me. That's all I wanted him to do. I wanted him to go tell his friends, so the friends of a friend could go tell my ex that here I was hanging out with one of his friends. That's what I wanted. And that's exactly what did not happen the way I had planned it. So I had to go in a little bit deeper. See, the phone thing wasn't doing it anymore. Just talking back and forth on the phone. That wasn't enough. I had to get up and I had to go. And Vaughn would plan these romantic evenings at the, let me pause a minute, y'all. I just got another name to this cluster. I had to write that down before I forgot. But Vaughn, he was very romantic. He liked to wine and dine a sister. He's the type, he want to bring you roses and flowers, and he want to give you jewelry, real jewelry. I'm talking about real jewelry, not the fake stuff, not the stuff you just go buy and it look real. But he wanted the real stuff. He was like he dressed like a thug, looked like a thug, but on the inside, he was this weak little boy, and I couldn't wait to play on that boy. The more he talked, the more I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to say to bring him down. And I did. And every time I would see him, I made him so nervous. I made him nervous because just off in one conversation in a few sentences, he didn't have to tell me much. I could look at him and tell what type he was. I know he's the type of brother. Now, he will hurt you. He will hurt you. If you hit him wrong long enough, he will hurt you. So I I got to put the pressure back on him a little bit. But with Vaughn, it was like this. Vaughn was so insecure. And the most thing he was insecure about, besides his size, was his color, his race. It was more about his color. And I could gather from what he had been telling me that he got picked on a lot because he was really dark skinned. I mean, this guy was like, he was darn near purple. Purplish blue. A dark bluish black. I don't know how to explain it. But it was a sexy color though. But he couldn't accept that. He couldn't accept that he was this color. And y'all, when you get these guys off these chat lines, they actually have so many insecurities going on, and I was there for it all because their insecurities made mine look good compared to what they were going through. This guy was afraid of being called a black person. I played on that. Right when he would sit down or when he would walk in the hotel room or when I would get there, because a lot of times he would go ahead and pay for the hotel room for us, and I might get there earlier than he do. He might have to come in late if he was working because his job had him all over the place. And so I would sometimes be waiting for him to walk through the door, and when he walked through the door, I'd be standing there ready to greet him, and I would give him this big old hug. Hey, glad you made it, and put on this sweet little charming voice. Y'all know my voice can be rough at times. I would do that, and I would make him feel so safe. I love doing that. I loved making him feel safe so that when he felt insecure, I could see it in his eyes. So when he would first get there, he would be feeling okay. No problem. But once he sat down and I give him time to get in there good, and he might want to take his shoes off or his jacket off, I'd be like, so why you don't never take your shirt off? And he'd touch his stomach. I got all this stomach right here. I said, I know, but I ain't got no problem with that. Which I didn't have no problem with size. Never have had a problem with a man with a little more to love. Never had a problem with that. I think it's sexy. I mean, that's just me. But a man is a man, and if you really like a person, then you like all of that too. Now, After he gives this excuse of why he can't take his shirt off, basically insecurities, I can't wait to play on that. And I'm like, get your uh I want to say this in a clean way because I'm telling y'all this from a point of view when I wasn't in the church and I wasn't saved. So I got to be careful how I put this out there because I do want this to help somebody to understand how women that have been hurt can play on you like this. But being that I know that he was insecure about that complexion thing, I would like be like, bring your black A here. I talk to him like that, and he'd be like, "Can you stop calling me that, please?" And the more he say, "Can you stop calling me that?" the more I call him that, and then I'd be like, "Oops, I forgot. You say you don't like that, don't you?" And boy, that joker turned red black. I mean, I just did a lot of things to get up on his nerves to annoy him, and he really just liked it me that much that he was willing to put up with it because he figured that we would be together forever. I figured that, hey, I don't see forever, but we can be friends. I never saw forever with him. I mean, I just let his mind take him where he wanted it to take him to. And then eventually he found out that's not where my mind was at. See, that's one thing about a man. A man, a figure he know what a woman want, but you can't read my mind. You don't know what's going on in my mind. Because the whole time he was laying there on side of me, and I would be looking at him, I'd be like, this is so... I had so many bad words to say about everybody else except for me. I never found nothing wrong with me in all of this because I was so far numbed out that I didn't see that I was really a problem, a big problem. This one time, I remember I called him a black A, meaning like black ass, I called him that, and I saw the look in his eyes. It was kind of like these tears came up in his eyes. And I was like, what you crying for? And he was like, I ain't crying. And then he started telling me about how his family was going through a whole bunch of problems. And dad had cancer. The mama had cancer. And I was so insecure, y'all. I mean, so not insecure, but I was so like, I sat there and I listened to him talk about his problems. And I think that's what somehow kept me and some of these guys together like that, was because some of us really did share some of the same problems. Whether it was our parents was sick or maybe it was something going on with our health. We did share some of the same problems. And at the same time that I did feel sorry for him, I couldn't let him know that. I couldn't let him see, because if I would have let him know that I actually was feeling sorry for him in that moment, it would have ruined everything. Because he would have got too close. He would have got much closer than what I wanted him to be. And closeness was my fear. I didn't want nobody close to me. That was my biggest fear. That I would actually meet up with somebody who would not just get close to me, but they would break down my walls and get into me. And guys have these sad stories, and women feel like he's telling me his story, so that means he must love me. And that's not true. A guy can tell you his story just to see what you got in behind you. And that's how I looked at it. I said, he's telling me his story, so there must be something that he wants. Because growing up, I learned that anytime that somebody tells you a sad story, it's something they want in return. Can you handle that? Can you afford to pay the price for what they want in return? And just as I said, the sad story did lead to something. Next thing I know, he thought he was supposed to have sex with me. had been knowing each other long enough to do it, but that's not what I wanted him for. See, the thing about me is I had my person already picked out for that part of my life. And that part of my life, I never violated willingly. I never violated that part of my life right there. One thing I always told myself is that you are not a whore. You are not a prostitute. You will not follow footsteps of others that you know. And I didn't. So just because I was meeting these guys at hotels, and many of them, if you was to talk to them right now, they would tell you it wasn't that type of arousal for them. But in this case, that's what he wanted. But not all the guys that I met wanted to have sex. They just wanted a place where they could be themselves. They wanted a place where they could relieve themselves. I would find out that later on that some of these guys actually had they had wives and they had girlfriends, and they was just needing some place to talk. So I became their ear. No sex involved. Just that person on the side that you could have a good time with. That was it. But this dude here, I was like, nah, bro, we ain't doing that. And I knew exactly how to turn him off. I turned him off so quickly by talking about his weight, and I went to talking about his color. I told him, ooh, boy, you got some big, thick, black thighs. I said, you look like a football player. He said, I ain't played football in 20-some years. And I just kept on just talking about it until finally, he didn't feel comfortable taking his clothes off around me. Bless his heart. I didn't care. I didn't care because it wasn't that type of party for me. I needed one thing and one thing only. I needed that reaction to look like this woman just made me feel low. And that's what happened. I made Vaughn feel low. When Vaughn left that morning, because, we did go to sleep. It's 2 beds in a room. Never have a guy with just one bed. It would always be two bedrooms for those that I did choose to meet up with. It would be 2 beds in that room, and we each would stay on our side of the bed. Whichever bed you had, that's the bed you stayed in. And at this time, if you're wondering, was I packing? Yes, I was. I carried a 38 snub nose with me everywhere I went after a certain incident happened. I'll tell you about it, just not right now. But yeah, that's how me and Vaughn ended up not doing anything. And we talked the rest of the night. Let me tell you what we did the rest of the night. We laid on the bed, cut the light off, and was just... Back then, nobody wanted to have their cell phones out where you could see who they were talking to. Now people don't care. They want their cell phones out at dinner, lunch, everything. But back then, we put our cell phones away, and we just had straight up conversations after that. I got my fix. It was almost like an arousal. It was like an orgasm. Every time I made a man feel bad about himself, I got boosted. Rather that man, I don't know what he would leave with, but I know I left feeling like I did do something, even though I didn't do nothing, because I got that reaction. And Vaughn's face was priceless, y'all, because he had these lips that kind of turned downward, and he had these big Bernie Mac eyes that kind of, how can I say it? When they look at you, you know when they sad, because they no longer cuckoo, but they just have a sadness in the eyes. Just a sad eyes. I can't describe it, but when somebody is bright-eyed, they bright-eyed, but when they have sad eyes, it's sad eyes. And when I left Vaughn had sad eyes, so my job was done. Another lively completed. Another mission.